Thank you everyone for joining this next session in the Homefront Rising series we're calling Building Your Military Spouse Cabinet. And my name is Libby Jameson. I'm one of the organizers for Homefront Rising. And we're so excited to have folks tuning in today. So I know we have folks here on Zoom and on the Facebook Live. We'll be monitoring the chat, so please feel free to ask your questions. And I know I saw some military spouse JD Network folks. We're really grateful that they are essentially the home for Homefront Rising right now and giving us this platform. So a little bit about Homefront Rising. It's an initiative aimed at elevating military spouses in public service and encouraging military spouses to seek out public service leadership positions, especially through running for office. So I am really excited today to have Amy Kroll with us. Amy is a military spouse, a rock star military spouse, a 2020 presidential scholar, and the executive director, I'm going to try and make sure I get the name right, of the LBJ Women's Campaign School at UT Austin. So we're really excited to have Amy here. We're going to be talking about campaigns and running and her program. And I'm not going to ramble on anymore. I'm going to let Amy kind of talk about her connection to the military, her story, and some background on the Women's Campaign School and what she's doing there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm absolutely honored to be joining this particular group today as a military spouse. It holds a special place in my heart. And I actually would really love to know who all is joining us today and what military base you might be stationed at, what state you might be stationed in, or where you may be tuning in from today. I know we probably have lots of folks from around the country. So if you could just put in the chat, I know I can see the chat on Zoom, and Libby is looking on Facebook Live, but would love to know where you all are. So my husband is active duty Air Force. He's a captain in the Air Force, and we are stationed at Joint Base San Antonio. And so before the pandemic, I actually was commuting to UT Austin, 2 hours each way, the things that military spouses do. So I was commuting up to Austin, and now I'm running the campaign school fully remotely, as so many of us are. And Dawn says that she is in Maryland near Annapolis, and her husband's active duty Army. Jessica says Navy, Washington, D.C. Welcome, you all. Really excited that you're joining us today. Current Air Force, soon to be Space Force. Currently stationed in Northern Virginia, says Sarah. So welcome. And I would love to know too, are you all interested in specifically in running for office, in becoming political staff, or in getting engaged in other ways? And I'll make sure I tailor the conversation a little bit to that. Beverly says, hi, Amy, 29-year Navy spouse, watching me from Peabody, Massachusetts, near Boston. Awesome. Kelly from South Carolina, spouses in the Army, DC. Well, welcome. It's so awesome to meet you guys. I wish we could all be in person hanging out, but and Jessica's interested in being political staff. This is great. So excited to hear what all of your goals are as well. But let me tell a little bit about my story where how I got involved in all of this, and tell you a little bit about the LBJ Women's Campaign School. So right out of college, I graduated in 2012 from my undergrad, and I knew I wanted to work on a political campaign, went out and worked for Claire McCaskill's Senate race in Missouri. Had never been to Missouri in my life, but went to join Claire McCaskill's Senate race. And then after that, I still had this big dream. I wanted to work in politics, and I moved to DC with 2 suitcases and a one-way ticket, and I knew where I was gonna stay for 1 week. And I just had this idea that I was gonna get a job and I was gonna make it work. And I got an internship in Senator Schumer's press office, and then ended up working at the National Democratic Institute, supporting democracies around the world on their political parties team, so helping strengthen political parties all around the world. And then was looking at my own political party and thought, gosh, there's so much work that needs to be done around democracy building in the United States. And I really am someone who believes in democracy, and I'm fiercely patriotic. I think that that's partly of what drew me to my husband, my military husband, is we're both fiercely patriotic. And I show that through working in politics, and he shows that through working in the military. And so I'm looking at my own political party and thinking, gosh, I really want to get involved there. So I end up switching over and working at the DNC for a couple of years, and then married my now husband, and he gets stationed here in Texas. And I say, husband, sorry, I'm working at the DNC. It's 2016. It's a big year at the DNC. You moved to Texas, and I'm going to join you after the election. And he thinks to himself, gosh, I really don't want to be apart from my brand new wife. And he actually finds me a job in Texas without me knowing. And so he ends up finding me a job on a swing congressional race here in Texas. And that launches my political career. Here in Texas, I end up working for the Texas Democratic Party and on several races here in Texas. So I spent basically the last decade working in politics at various levels, and then decided to go back to graduate school. So I go to the LBJ school at UT Austin's Public Affairs School at UT Austin. And it's 2018 at this point, and it's the year of the woman. I see so many women running for office. I'm so excited about this, but I also see that there's so much work that still needs to be done, right? Like record numbers of women still means only, 26% of Congress, right? Like that is record numbers. So I'm thinking there's so much work that needs to be done. What if we trained women to run for office here in Texas? And what if we did it at the LBJ school? This is a top 10 nationally ranked school. This is the perfect place to host something like this. So I start pitching the idea to some professors, some donors, and ultimately to the dean of the LBJ school. She loves the idea. And then we hit the ground running with building this program. We just graduated our first class of 50 women. So excited about this. They're amazing. They are veterans, military spouses, 2 military spouses were in our first cohort. We had teachers, nonprofit executives, lawyers, doctors. We had a heart surgeon in our class. So really diverse group of women. They were majority women of color. They came from 8 states around the country. So just a fantastic group of 50 women. And actually the first person from our class just graduated, and the first person from our class just announced her candidacy. She's running for city council in Dallas. And another one might be announcing pretty quick here that she's running for school board. So really excited to see what they all do into the future. And so now applications are open for our second cohort, open now through March 1st. And I guess, should I just tell a little bit about the program, Libby? Is that where we're going next?
Yeah, absolutely. A little bit of background would be great.
Great, yeah. So it's an 8-month virtual program. It was originally, before the pandemic, we had envisioned bringing everyone to UT Austin's campus for a week-long intensive training program. But we've switched to this model where we're meeting virtually once a month. And this model has actually worked out really well for us because we've been able to bring in speakers from across the nation. So for example, we had Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, Senator Florence Shapiro, state senator here in Texas. We had 2 White House communications directors join us, former White House communications directors. We've been able to bring in really top-notch speakers from all around the country. And that's been a real advantage of doing this virtual space. And we've been able to bring in participants from around the country as well. So it's an 8-month virtual program. We're also going to have 3 networking sessions because we want to make sure we're building a really strong cohort so that you all can feel connected to one another and support one another as you enter the political arena. And I'm already seeing that happen with our first cohort. They're all shouting each other out on social media and supporting one another and helping one another navigate their political careers. So we have those 3 networking sessions. We also have a mentorship component, which is really important because actually studies show that people who do mentorship show an 88% productivity increase compared to a 24% productivity increase from training alone. And so when you're doing this mentorship, that means someone is really looking out for you. Someone is invested in you and helping you with your individual needs. Because when there's 50 women in the class, I want to be there for every single person all the time. But of course, That's a lot of folks. And so what we've done is we've brought in political experts, elected officials, political operatives, community leaders to meet with the women in our class and help answer their questions and guide them on their own individual path. So those are the main components of our program. There's also a media training component, and there's a campaign plan competition, which I think is really fun. This for the most recent cohort, we broke the women into groups, and they had to come up with a campaign plan as if they were running for District 5 in San Antonio. So I said, one of the people in your groups is running for District 5 in San Antonio, put together a plan, and we had it judged by some incredible people. It's a bipartisan program, so we had someone from the RNCC come in and judge, someone from Annie's List, which is a Democratic organization here in Texas. And that was a really, really fun opportunity as well. So that's the main components of our program. But I'd love to answer any questions from you, Libby. If there's questions in the chat, would love to.
Yeah, well, so feel free, folks, to plug in your questions. I have a ton of questions, so I'll start. But I think you touched on this a little bit, but the program is not just for folks who only want to run for office. It's also for folks who are interested in maybe managing a campaign or working on the staff side, right?
Yes, absolutely. So in our most recent cohort, 17 out of the 50 wanted to become campaign managers, and the rest were interested in becoming candidates. And so it was a pretty significant portion of the class that wanted to be campaign managers. And so we were able to, bring in campaign managers to talk about what that's like. But what's interesting is that a lot of the skills overlap. Campaign managers are increasingly talking to the press and going and being surrogates at events and working really as a partnership with their candidate. And so a lot of the skills really overlap in both. And so, yeah, it's for certainly for both. And I think that being a political staff is a great career path. Obviously, I'm biased. Great career path for a military spouse, because politics is everywhere, right? We get moved around and stationed to different places, and politics is everywhere. And so there's always work to be done in the political arena around the country.
Yeah, one of the questions we get every time we do any kind of training is about that portability piece, right? Because that is so huge for our military community. And so I'm wondering if you have thoughts and suggestions on how to get plugged in. Say you are in Texas, you build this great network and you have this skill set, and then you find yourself in Washington or Virginia or wherever you land. How do you transfer those connections? Like, do you utilize the connections in your existing network? Do you have to start from scratch? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that both and all of the above. And that was going to be one of my top tips is learning the landscape. And I think that this is something that you all already do really well, whether or not you realize it, whether or not you're already doing it in the political arena. When you move to a new base, you're finding your communities, you're finding where the grocery store is, you're learning the landscape over and over again. And so I think actually military spouses are very well suited to figuring out the political landscape, whether or not you've done it in your area already. And so, yeah, I would recommend doing all of the above. You can certainly start from scratch in the way that you can look and see whether or not your local political party is hosting events, whether or not there are groups that are hosting events. And right now they're happening virtually. And so it's pretty easy to just tune in, see if you like it, click out of it if it's not your thing. Right? It's really easy to check these things out, or go and watch actually a virtual government meeting. You can, so many government meetings, like our county commissioner's court is live streamed. So you can watch those meetings. There's ways to do it from scratch. And then there's ways to do it with your existing network. So I know, right, you mentioned at the top, I'm a presidential leadership scholar. That's one of my networks. So certainly if I'm moving around, I'm going to reach out to that network and say, hey, do you guys know anyone in this area? Or maybe you're part of an alumni network. Maybe you're part of a junior league network, Rotary, different community groups that you might be involved in your current location that actually might have nationwide alumni bases or membership bases that you can tap into.
Yeah. I think thinking about our networks is important, and I don't think that's unique to being a military spouse. One of the things which you can probably speak to, being working in the political fields. A lot of people move around and they come to DC for a while, they go back to a state, they find a job on a campaign in a different state. So it's not necessarily unique in that respect, but I think tapping in, where I know a lot of spouses get frustrated, is you feel like you have to start from the bottom every time, right? Like you've built your credibility, you've proven yourself, you've worked your way up, maybe in a campaign structure or a job, and then you go to a new state, nobody knows who you are. Maybe, you go to the meetings, but nobody understands the skill set that you have. So if you do have folks that can vouch for you and, say like this person's reliable, they're going to do a good job, that can be really valuable. So I think we shouldn't be scared to ask, not just for the connections, but hey, will you vouch? Like, let them know I'm a good worker and I know what I'm doing, and that'll help plug you in a little bit faster. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I love that point, because I can definitely relate to that with when I moved from DC to Texas. So I was working at the DNC, and I was the assistant to the chairwoman at the DNC, which is, kind of the assistant to the very top person in the political party. So kind of the lowest person on the team, but to the highest person in the party. And I moved to Texas. My husband, I said, found me a job on a swing congressional race. It was as a regional field director, which when I was moving to Texas, a lot of my friends in DC were like, why are you even, people thought, Amy, this is a step down in your career. What are you doing? Was what some haters, some other people were saying to me. But I felt like this is important to me. I want to go be with my brand new husband in Texas, and this is going to help launch my political career in Texas and help me to make connections in Texas. And within 1 month of working on that race, I was promoted. Literally within 1 month, especially because campaigns work so quickly, right? I joined that campaign in June. And when you're looking at that, the job actually ends in November. Getting promoted within 1 month is campaigns move quickly. And so you might find yourself in a similar situation where if you prove your worth, you get on the ground, people see what you're capable of, you'll quickly get promoted within the campaign. So
yeah, well, and I think that's a good point too, is you can't be scared of what some people might perceive as stepping backwards is ultimately going to be a step forwards for you on this new path. So we can't be scared of maybe redirecting every once in a while, although it certainly can be frustrating when you're doing it over and over again. But continuing to see that as an opportunity, I think, is important as a military spouse. So there is a question in the chat. What are the requirements for attending your program, and are there any background experiences necessary?
So it is a highly competitive program. So last year we had 100 applicants and only 50 were selected. And so what we are looking for is, it's not that we have specific background requirements that you must check every single box and here's the boxes. It's more that we are looking for meaningful professional experience. We're looking for people with a passion for serving their community, which you all already have. Your military spouses, you are already serving your community. So we're looking for meaningful professional experience, willing to serve, and that you have clear goals. What are you planning to do with this training? Are you planning to run for office? Are you planning to become political staff? Why is this training important for you right now in your political career? And I think that that's a really important question, especially for military spouses to think about, because if it's something where maybe you're thinking, I plan to run after my, maybe you're thinking you want to run after your spouse maybe retires and it's 15 years down the line or something like that, then maybe engaging your community in different ways other than doing a training program right now and then running 15 years later, I might guide you away from that strategy, just because politics might shift significantly over 15 years, the tactics that we use, the technologies that we're using. But I would encourage you to think about your plan And why are you waiting 15 years? You know, I think especially here in Homefront Rising, where we're encouraging women to run right now, while your spouse is in active duty, I might encourage you to really question, why is it that you are having that longer timeline? So I feel like that was a really long, rounded way of saying, like, think through exactly what your goals are with this training program. That is something that we are looking for, is that you've thought that through. Libby, I'm going to pass that one back to you a little bit about being a military spouse running for office and the timing and the goals.
Yeah, well, and I think a lot of times people hear running for office and they think Congress. I need to immediately run for the Senate, or I'm gonna have to raise all of this money and run for this huge statewide office. And one of the things we try to talk about is there are so many other opportunities. You mentioned someone from the program is planning on running for school board. There are so many local opportunities, and quite frankly, the local opportunities can be way more impactful and meaningful and may match up better with your skill set. If you have a background as an environmental engineer, or I'm trying to think, teaching, nursing, there are things like occupational licensing boards, school board, parks and rec. I mean, there's all these boards. Some of those you don't even have to run, they're appointments. But there are so many opportunities besides just running at the federal level. And if you look, a lot of folks started at the local level and served on a board and then maybe ran for a state legislature or a state level office. I know there's a lot of attorneys on the line, so there are state bar ways to get involved with the state bar, specialty bar associations like MSJDN, fulfilling these positions that are not necessarily going to require you to full-time run for, drop everything and make the campaign your entire life. So, and it sounds like this program is designed similarly, not just to propel the next, great senator from Texas or but to think about some of these other options. And I think those options a lot of times make more sense. Maybe a Parks and Rec board is a 1-year term, and so it aligns well with the tour of duty somewhere. So yeah, I think it's a great advice to kind of sit down and think what actually aligns with your skills and your interests, what fits within the timing. And that doesn't mean that's the only office you're ever going to run for. Maybe that's just the first step.
I absolutely love everything that you're saying, Libby. Yes, I found this statistic so interesting. There are 500,000 elected positions in the United States. And to put that in perspective, I looked up, my parents are both dentists. So I looked up how many dentists are in the United States, and the American Dental Association says there's 200,000 dentists in the United States. So there are twice as many elected officials as dentists,
Yeah,
which I think is nuts. There's 90,000 governments in the United States. And you're right that that's not even including all of the appointments that you can get to influence policy. And we actually had Peggy Venable is in charge of political appointments for the governor here in Texas. We had her come in and speak to the class, and our military spouse actually asked, "Hey, as a military spouse, can I apply for these boards? I might not be in Texas for that long." And Peggy Venable said, "Yes, we want military spouses to be serving on these boards. We want your perspective. We understand that you're going to have to leave, but we want your perspective while you are here. Absolutely, please apply." And the first step, she said, is to go to their website and submit an application. And so in your own state, there's probably a political appointments application portal where you can submit your application, and you can do that right now. Like, you can, as a first step for running for office, apply to the LBJ Women's Campaign School and go to your local website and apply for political boards. Like, do both, do them this week. Those are things that you can do right now to get involved in politics in your community and get your political career started. So yeah.
Giving out homework already before you even get into the program. One, we're getting close here. to wrapping up. But one thing I wanted to touch on before we go is, not all military spouses are women, but obviously a very high percentage. Most folks attending Homefront Rising have been women. So I'm curious if you can talk about, what some of those barriers that you see and discuss within your program specific to women running for office. I think some of those probably overlap with being a military spouse, although we have some unique portability issues that may not always apply to all women. But yeah, I would just be curious to hear your thoughts on some of those barriers and how the program helps folks navigate those barriers.
Yeah, this is a great question. One thing that I'm really proud of that we did in our first cohort was we actually had a family training, and we have that planned for our second cohort as well. So we invited the women to bring in their families. I originally thought, let's make it a spouse training, but not everybody in the program has a spouse. And so we made it actually a family training, and that was so meaningful. We had people's parents, people's children, people's spouses, aunts, uncles, or chosen family as well joined us. People who are great friends in the area where they're living, who are their chosen family and would support them on the campaign. So what we did is we had a political veteran come in and talk about the ways that families can get involved in the campaign, because when you do step into the arena, that impacts your family as well. And that's something that, especially for women, can be a big deal and can be daunting. And so to bring in your family and give them that training as well. So we went through, not only here are the ways that your family member can help. They can, appear on your mailers and do a photo shoot, and can do a fundraising, and can knock doors and grassroots organizing, and the actual practical nuts and bolts ways that your family can get involved. But also we brought in a panel of families. So we had some children of a candidate, the spouse of a candidate. We had a few others on this panel, and they actually shared, what was it really like for you when your spouse, sister, daughter was attacked in a political ad, or what was this like for you? And they could share just a real practical, real life, real talk about what that's like for your families. And that can be, having that knowledge can be comforting to your family as well as you step out into the unknown of running for office. So we definitely did that. And then we also had a discussion on imposter syndrome. So sometimes we as women can feel like we're not enough. We've maybe tricked someone to getting to where we're going. But we had a discussion kind of addressing that we are enough. We are ready. We know exactly what we are capable of. So we had a discussion of that as well. And then women, of course, face a fundraising gap. And so we train on the practical skills of here's how to raise money, budget, grassroots organizing, training on all of those skills that could be barriers, additional barriers for women in the political arena.
Excellent. Yeah, that's so great. And so I hope folks will check out the campaign school, get your applications in. Any last words of advice for military spouses interested in following in your footsteps and pursuing a career in politics?
I think this group is incredibly resilient, flexible, creative, strong. You are already managing your own household, maybe while a spouse is deployed or stationed elsewhere. You are already navigating how do you manage your career as you move from place to place. Like, this group of people is so strong, so resilient, and you know exactly what you need, what your family needs, and what your community needs. And so I want to encourage you to think about, I guess I want to say you know exactly what you are capable of, and those are the qualities that we need in our public servants. Those are the qualities that we need in our elected officials. And so I'm excited that so many of you are thinking about running for office, becoming political staff, getting involved in your community, because right now we need you in the political arena more than ever before. Citizens are asking so much of their government. We're in this time of national crisis, global pandemic, facing structural racism, facing the impacts of climate change. We are facing so much as a society right now, and the world needs your voice, your leadership, and you are already leading in your community. So I hope that you'll consider stepping into the political arena and bringing your political career to that next level. And I hope that we can be a part of that political journey and help you along that path.
Well said. And we're so appreciative of your leadership and making this program available, and can't wait to see all the amazing women that come out of it and save the world.
Yes.
And I see already, so Jessica in the comments says, I am already in the process of running for a fully elected position. And I see some
Jessica.
Develda on Facebook. Yes, we'll get in touch with some local resources. Would love to connect with you. So that's why we do these. I love to see it. And a couple just housekeeping things before we wrap up. The next military spouse cabinet chat is February 16th with Lakeisha Kroll, who's an amazing military spouse advocate, has done a ton of advocacy surrounding employment and entrepreneurship. So she will be here to tell her story and talk about pursuing a career in advocacy. And the military spouse guide to running for office is up and on the Homefront Rising website, runmilspouserun.com. So if you are thinking about it, it's not a super comprehensive guide that's going to tell you everything you need to do, but it touches on a lot of the issues very specific to military spouses running for office. And then you can go to a great program like the Women's Campaign School and work through some of the nuts and bolts. So I think that is it. Applications are due when? March 1st. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, Amy. We really appreciate it. And I hope everybody will go. The link is posted here in the chat. So go check it out and get your applications in.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one, everybody.